I'm recording!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sound Good podcast. I'm your host, Michael.
And I'm depressed.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the albums Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues and Flying Microtonal Banana by Australian psych rock band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. So before we do any of that, Micah.
We're going to talk about Moody Blues first for once. We're just going to flip it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, fuck it. I mean, sure. We always do
Yeah.
me first. Let's do you first.
Sure, go for it.
Baby boy. How'd you like it? Oh, well, I guess I should probably Oh no, I wasn't ready.
Oh, okay, Mister, let's go you first.
Oh no. Yeah, I have no information on this. I did not pull it up.
Okay, so we'll just do you first then.
Yeah, that's fine.
All that for nothing. Good one.
Only
right, so
professional, dude.
Okay, so the album I recommended you for, this week was an album that came out, was one of 5 albums released in 2017 by, like I said, Australian psych rockers King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I believe this one was album 2 or 3 of 5. It was one of the earlier ones.
This is album 9.
I mean, out of the 5 last year, though.
Oh, it was the first one.
It was the first one last year?
Yeah.
Okay, I figured. I knew it was something earlier.
You like how I know more about this than the one that I suggested to you?
Yes, actually. So
I did it for you.
So I know you like the proggy psyche stuff a little bit after our Sam Gopal episode and
Yeah.
Rush and all that stuff. So what'd you think of this?
It was definitely a lot heavier on psych and experimental than it was anything prog, I would say.
Yeah.
If it was progressive in any way, it was progressive between songs, not necessarily within songs, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think the first time I listened to it, I was a little bummed because the first track is like 8 minutes. So it's 7:48. So I'm just gonna, I'll be like those dirty engineers and just round up to 8 minutes. I'm a chemistry major, so I'm just gonna shit on engineers.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the experimentation on the album. I forgot to mention to you. I'm sure it became apparent the second you heard it.
Well,
but this album, they actually, all the members of the band went out and bought one microtonal tuned instrument, and that's how they recorded this album.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know what microtonal tuning is,
Me.
it's microtonal tuning basically deals with, because in normal music theory you have, well, in Western music theory you have whole steps and half steps. So it's either a whole step or a half step. So that's why you have notes like F sharp and F. Whereas in microtonal tunings, more Eastern tunings use these. Like I think India makes very good use of microtonal tunings. There are quarter steps and 3/4 steps, but it's technically just a quarter step down. So you'd have like, I can't remember what the notation is, but essentially you have a note in between F and F sharp that sounds different enough to be distinguishable between the two.
Okay.
So if you ever look up a picture of like a microtonal guitar, the fretboard is whack.
So it's specifically, because I know that there is
it's specifically made, yeah.
Well, I know that there is specifically, like, in terms of volume, there's always that noticeable threshold between decibels where your ear can pick out, hey, that's a different volume. So that's kind of what's going on here, where they tuned it just to where your ear can go, oh, that's a different note.
Yes.
But only that much.
But only if you're listening too, though, because there's some parts that I think in Rattlesnake specifically that he just sounds like he's slightly flat.
Yeah.
But once you tune into that is when you can like pick up on it, I think.
Yeah, because it's definitely you don't notice necessarily that they are micro-tuned off the top, like especially if you're ignorant like this guy. It just sounds like kind of, because I know that in the past they've kind of delved into surfer rock sounds, and I think that they're still maybe channeling that a tiny bit in terms of the guitar tone, but yeah, it just sounds like psychedelic rock. But then there are some moments where you're just kind of thinking, oh, that was kind of a sour note. But I guess in tuning, it totally was not.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it takes some ear training to be able to listen to it and not hear bad notes, but just hear different notes.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do, I do think the album gets really enjoyable. That sounds pretentious as hell, but...
Yeah, and I think, so before we got into all of this, I think that I know that you can just sweep it under the rug and go, hey man, psychedelic rock, but the really long first track where they just repeat, the lyrics repeated a lot.
Yeah.
It felt like it could have been 3/4 of the length, I would say, and I would have been happier. I won't go full half, because that would be mean. I know what they're going for, but 3/4, that's where I would go.
Yeah.
I just got a little tired of hearing the word rattlesnake at a certain point.
I can agree with you there. I think that song could have been a little shorter, but
and it's really weird because after that, the first 3 songs are the longest songs, and after that, they're all barely 4 minutes. Well, Sleep Drifter is 4:44, but after that, they're all like 3 minute or barely 4 minute. And they almost get progressively shorter because the last song is only 2:30, and it's an instrumental track.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
I think the album definitely has a lot of that psychedelic drive to it, just to where everything's very repetitive, and
yeah,
it's definitely very,
and it works,
drony and trippy, and I think it definitely works for the genre, for the effect they were going.
It's the way that the music feels. It would work definitely if you listen to it while driving or something.
Yeah,
because it's definitely like music that feels like it's chugging along forward. You know?
Yeah.
It feels like it's forward progressing, even though they're repeating. But like the rhythms have that forward progression to it. And so I was gonna make a bad joke about which instrument was the microtonal banana, but it was 100% the Zurna. I don't know if you know what that is.
Zurna, yeah.
That's what that terrible kazoo sounding instrument is. Yep. That keeps coming in. I'm curious to know if that was microtuned too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Was it?
Oh yeah. Every instrument used on this album was microtuned.
That's great.
Microtonal tuned.
I wonder how, if they had to get one of those custom made, because it can't be easy to get a microtuned wind instrument, I feel.
I don't know.
Or even like micro-tuned harmonica, because I know they use that too.
Do they?
I'm fairly certain that there was a harmonic. Yeah, microtonal harmonica was used on here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think absolutely, because the last song is just called Flying Microtonal Banana, and the Zurna is the main focus in terms of instruments on it. So I think that that's what they kind of that's what the intent was to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty funny. I think my favorite song was probably maybe Nuclear Fusion, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's the only one that doesn't have the Zurna on it.
Oh yeah, sure.
But it's not for that reason, I swear.
Uh-huh. I actually really like Open Water off of this album. That's probably one of my favorite tracks other than Rattlesnake. I love Rattlesnake.
Yeah, and I think that anytime they got super experimental, it was kind of similar to Voice of Trespass from Between the Buried and Me, or like Glide or whatever, where it finally, like, the sound hits you and you just go, this is stupid. I love it.
It's exactly what it is for me, man.
Yeah.
How long is this going on? This is awesome.
No, don't stop.
But yeah, like
I know I'm yelling, but don't stop.
But yeah, even though you said like the first 3 tracks were like the longest ones, and then they just got shorter from there. Like it's still like a 42-minute long album too. Like it's still a decently long album. So did that have anything? Did that affect your listening? Anything like that?
I think the album got better once it got into the shorter songs.
Okay.
Because
so it kind of benefited from being longer.
It works a lot nicer with their tendency to repeat melodies a lot, so it got a lot shorter and sweeter, I guess, towards the end. But this would be another one where I would have to be in a very specific mood to listen to it again. Probably.
Did you like it?
I will absolutely check out their other stuff, like what was Nonagon Infinity. That'll definitely be one to check out.
Man, if you're not a fan of repeating melodies, Jesus Christ, be careful with that album.
Okay, but at the same time, it's not microtuned, so I'm sure it sounds pretty different, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's definitely. I'm super interested to know what the rest of their stuff sounds like, since apparently they change up their sound pretty constantly.
Oh yeah, I think every album. Every one of the 5 albums they released last year all sound different and like individual from each other.
And that's ridiculous that they've only been around since 2010, and they kind of pulled a Buckethead, and they've just been releasing albums like crazy.
Yeah, well, it was really cool because they actually out of the 5, I think it had to have been 5. I'm pretty sure it was 5.
Yeah, 5 in
like
2017.
It was 6. Okay, it was 5.
Yeah,
but yeah, out of the 5, like the first 3. Were just these like they just came out like bang bang bang, and then the 4th one, Polygon Dwanaland, came out like late in 2017, like September or August, I believe, and it was free.
Huh?
They released that one entirely for free, and then they dropped the 5th one, Gumboot Soup. I think it was Gumboot Soup.
Hey, did we mention they're Australian?
Yeah, I did.
I don't know. I don't know if they can tell. They're Australian. Did you know Stu McKenzie is Australian?
Oh man, but yeah, and then they dropped Gumboot Soup like on the 30th of December, like the day before 2018.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean, all phenomenal, all sound different. I think my least favorite of them is probably Brunswick East, but that's just because they took a really weird direction with that album. There's I don't know, if you want to listen to it, go for it. You'll know what I mean.
Okay. But, yeah, no, I don't know that I'll come back to a lot of these albums, like just in my casual listening the way I do my favorite bands, but I do definitely want to check out and listen to all of their albums at least once, just because it's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'll probably find stuff that I really enjoy. I can tell.
Cool. Well,
thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah, you got it.
You're a good friend.
Yeah.
Just what you want to be, you will be in the end, and I love you. Yes, I.
Okay, moving more importantly onto the album I suggested.
Do you actually have the information up and ready now?
You would think, right? So.
Okay.
No, so the album that I suggested to Michael was Days of Future Past by English rock band Moody Blues, The Moody Blues, and it was released in 1967.
The Moody Blues.
So the reasons that this got on my radar was that someone in my family really loves the Moody Blues, and at some point we ended up with a vinyl of this, and ironically I never listened to the vinyl of this album, even though I've had it accessible. But yeah, and the other reason was that they finally just recently, like, the band got accepted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I think maybe for this album.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's their second album, and it was released on with Deram Records, Deram.
Durham.
Yeah, Deram.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's English.
Durham.
It's English, but not like the good English, like over here.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Oh, hey, so we're doing Australian and English at the same. So they're basically the same. First of all.
Okay, moving on. Stop it.
Where are they going? Where's everybody
Stop
going? You know, this album's super cool just because it's the epitome of like 60s concept prog, and honestly it felt kind of movie soundtracky a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just because it's that level of concept that they're going for. Like, it felt kind of romantic era symphony a little bit.
I thought like honestly I thought like this movie I thought like this
We're talking about
album-
X-Men now?
Yeah. No, honestly, I thought that this album, like when I was listening to it, it made me think of like a black and white movie from like the 30s or 40s. Like,
Yeah.
it just has that kind of sound to it.
And it would be a pretty abstract movie at that.
Well, I mean,
would say.
if you read the lyrics, it'd be a lot of like being outside.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it seems like. I do think that now starting off, I really liked this album.
Yeah.
It was really cool how much music they were actually able to fit into it, considering it's only 22 minutes long.
Yeah.
So like it's what is it? It's it's like 5 tracks total.
And it's very akin to like 2112 in terms of they are different tracks, but they basically are just a full piece of music, you know?
Yes. You can tell when the tracks end, obviously, but like it does work a lot better if you listen to it all together. This album, the single on it was actually, I believe, the most popular song on it, at least, was "Nights in White Satin."
Mm-hmm.
And that song, I was actually surprised to find out that "Nights in White Satin" is just part of is like part of the last song. It's not its own track.
Yeah.
It's like a movement within the final song, which was really interesting.
Yeah, so is it ordered as like, is it its own individual track where it's available, or is it just The Night and it's part of The Night?
It's part of The Night. In
That's
order
it,
to listen
yeah.
to Nights in White Satin, you have to listen to The Night.
Yeah, it looks like the second part of The Night, because it's Nights in White Satin and then Late Lament, Resolvement.
Yep.
I mean, that second part's only like 1:46 though.
Yeah, it's a little interlude. It's that recurring
your outro?
orchestral interlude.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I was not ready for that when I turned this album on.
Right.
And I hear this movie style esque theater, you know, and I'm just like, oh, what am I getting myself into? Because I had, from a young age, because my dad was really into classic rock and stuff like that when I was younger, and he still is. Mm-hmm. So I would hear him talk about the Moody Blues, or like he would mention songs by the Moody Blues, but I had no idea who the Moody Blues was.
Yeah.
I never listened to him until now. So it was really cool to hear this like orchestral intro and then this spoken word for the day begins. There's no like, I don't want to say musical content, because there is like an orchestra playing, but it's not like your traditional rock radio, like classic rock sound.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it immediately made me think of maybe how, I'm wondering if Metropolis Part 2 got any influence from that, because it starts and ends also with spoken word guy too, right? So that's really interesting that's kind of a consistent thing between concept albums.
Yeah, that's really I never made that connection, actually. That's kind of cool.
But it also made me think of I kind of thought of Nightmare Before Christmas a little bit in terms of the grandiose way that the spoken word was reciting, because it felt outdoors, because Nightmare Before Christmas starts out with like being in the forest and everything, and
it felt kind of goofy, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I know probably back in 1967 this was like really progressive and like, whoa, what is this? Mm-hmm. But like I'm not gonna say it didn't age well, because I still think it sounds really good. It just feels it's really campy nowadays, and
Absolutely.
that's not the album's fault at all, because like I said, back when it came out, it was probably like, whoa, what is this music? This is insane. And now I'm just kind of like, Hey, cool, an orchestral interlude. Hey, cool, an orchestral theme. Like all this other stuff. And
it's really interesting. Yeah,
it didn't detract from it at all for me. Like I thought this was a pretty dope piece of 1967.
Yeah, and it's kind of worth noting that there's almost no rock on this album. It kind of feels like there is maybe track 3, The Morning, Another Morning, but that's like a very major feeling bouncy 60s track. There's no real heavy anything anywhere on this album.
Yeah, but
the focus is so much the symphony.
It definitely does rock though every now and then. Like I will say that, like Nights and White Satin obviously goes rock, but yeah, no, they definitely made it focus more on the orchestral, which was the London Festival Orchestra, which I see that on the album cover, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know what to say about this album. It was really good. They did the theme really well. The orchestra was great. It sounds really good for a 51-year-old album, which is actually insane saying that. Like this album is officially older than half a century. That is actually crazy. Yeah,
and it does feel old, but it doesn't feel that far off either.
Right. It feels like honestly, I would have believed it if you'd have told me this came out in like 1989 or something.
Yeah, so in that sense, it is. Yeah, I agree with you that this was definitely progressive at the time.
It was ahead of its time for sure.
Like, I guess they would be alongside guys like Yes in that sense, though.
Yeah.
Because Yes were absolutely doing this kind of stuff at the same time.
Yeah, and they were absolutely ahead of their time as well, if you ask me. But so yeah, I don't know.
I know. I mean, it's a concept album, so what'd you think of the lyrics at all? If you wanted to look into those at all.
The lyrics were like, I actually was looking through the lyrics during a listen through because I wanted to do that because I knew it was a concept album.
Yeah.
It's kind of abstract a little bit in what it's talking about. Like it's clearly talking about like a single day.
Yeah.
It seems like it's, I don't know, it almost feels like it's a metaphor for like your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like it's just going through somebody's day.
Yeah, it feels like it's telling a story of some. It's like making a metaphor between your life within a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Nights in White Satin, white satin.
Just
for purity and all that stuff. And
I also figured just lying in bed too.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really
because they're English and they have satin sheets. Rich.
What is with you,
rich bastards?
What is with you? Stop it.
G'day, mate.
Oh my god. I don't know, man. I didn't really look too deeply into the lyrics. That's all I'm getting is just a huge metaphor for life, pretty much.
Yeah, it's interesting that, I mean, I think it's just as deep as that. I don't think, even though it's a concept album, I don't think it goes very much deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It seems pretty straightforward in terms of what they're trying to say musically.
Right. But yeah, no, I like the album. I would definitely. It's one of those albums because it's a concept album. It's hard to go back to and listen to individually. Like it's got to be something that I want to sit down and for sure I want to listen to the whole thing all at once.
Yeah, I thought that this was a pretty good background music album.
Yeah,
but you have to start to finish. You can't just
Yeah, you can't stop halfway through or something like that, and you can't skip to your favorite song because it's in the middle of another song.
Mm-hmm. I really enjoy it. I don't know. It just cracks me up that just with the song titles, I really like Lunch Break.
Mm-hmm. Right, peak hour.
Yeah, peak hour, peak.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I don't know. That makes me think of Twin Peaks for some reason. Okay, peak. That's why. Fuck.
Duh.
Shit. This apple pie is delicious. Cherry pie. No, it's cherry. No. Turn off the podcast.
Okay, we're done.
reflecting in your eyes from a distance. Mirroring the stars of the heavens, mixing up like a cocktail.
Alright, everybody, that does it for another episode of the Sound Good podcast. I hope you enjoyed our talks about the album. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on iTunes and Google Play. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at itsoundsgoodpod. Give us a like on Facebook, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.